Assalamu alaikum. Miss Fatma is speaking. I hope you are in good health. This is the first lecture in short story. Today, inshallah, we will discuss the main points, which are definition of literature, importance of literature in English, kinds of literature, and elements of the short story. How to analyze, the short story, according to these elements. Um, why do you think the study of literature is very interesting and helpful, for learners? The study of literature is very interesting and helpful to learners for many reasons. Literature in English involves the reading and analysis of written materials of different kinds, including fiction and non-fiction works in English. Also, all learners of literature in English should be ready to analyze whatever they read critically by the end of the course. What is the definition of literature? What do you mean by literature? Yeah, it is very difficult to offer a precise definition of literature, but we shall give a working definition of it in line with what we shall be studying, in this course. Literature can be defined as pieces of writing that are valued as works of art, especially novels, plays, and poems. This is according to Oxford Advanced Learners English Dictionary. Another definition of literature is the body of written works, produced in a particular language, country, or age, or the body of writings on a particular subject, scientific, art, geography, etc. Looking at the previous dictionary definition, yes, looking to the previous definition, to the previous dictionary definitions of literature, we may define literature generally as any body of written works that is written and produced in any country, language, or age for a specific purpose, such as information, education, or entertainment to the reader, which can be fictional or non-fictional in nature. However, in literature in English as a subject, our main concern is on this definition, inshallah. Importance of literature. Why do you study literature? Just think about that. Why do you study literature? Reading and studying literature is very important for various reasons as outlined below according to Shimarachandya. Literature improves your command of language. It teaches you about the life, cultures, and experiences of people in other parts of the world. Also, it gives you information about other parts of the world which you may never be able to visit in your lifetime. Yes, um, it entertains, and provides useful occupation in your free time. Literature makes you a wiser and more experienced person by forcing you to judge, sympathize with, or criticize the characters you read about. Also, literature helps you compare your own experience with the experiences of other people. Literature gives information which may be useful in other subjects, for example, in geography, science, history, social studies, and so on. Yeah. So, in general, literature is very important to all readers, although you may not take literature in English as an examinable subject at university. Reading is in fact very much part of language learning. Among other things, this will improve your command of the English language if you read widely. So, teachers of the English language should encourage their students to read widely by using uh, by using university and community libraries, exchange books now with their colleagues. Kinds of literature. Okay, what are the kinds of literature? Okay, we have two kinds of literature, which are fictional and non-fictional. So, generally literature is divided into two kinds, fictional and non-fictional. Fictional literature is imaginary composed writing or work of art that is meant to provide information, education, and entertainment to the reader. In other words, fictional literature is based on the writer's imagination rather than reality. Yeah. Examples of fictional literature include plays, poems, short stories, novels, oral literature, and songs. The second kind of literature is non-fictional literature. Non-fictional literature is factual writing or written work that is that gives facts that can be proved as it provides real places, events, characters, times, or reality rather than imaginary things. Examples of non-fictional literature include autobiographies, biographies of authors, writers, essays, diaries, and journals, magazines, newspapers, subject textbooks such as geography, history, and civic education. Yes, these are examples of non-fictional literature. Short story. Okay, we consider short story as fictional literature or non-fictional literature. Yeah, short story is a fictional literature. Yes. What is the definition of a short story? Here we have, many of definitions of the short story. Short story is a piece of fictional writing, usually less than 5,000 words, that contain these basic elements: characters, setting, plot, conflict, resolution, climax, dialogue, protagonist, and antagonist. Another definition of short story is a brief of work of fiction. The short story resembles the longer novel, but generally has a similar plot and setting. In addition, the short story tends to reveal character at a crucial moment rather than to develop it through many incidents. This is a form of a prose fiction, a creative, non-poetic kind of composition. Yes, so a short story is fictional work of a prose that is shorter in length than a novel. The format of short story is often narrative than tends to be more pointed than longer works of fiction such as novella in the 20th and the 21st century sense. Yeah. Usually, a short story focuses on one incident, one event, has a single plot, a single setting, a small number of characters, and covers a short period of time. Yes. So, a short story is a work, yes, in brief, a short story is a work of short narrative process that is usually centered around one single event It is limited in scope and has an introduction, body, and conclusion. Uh, Although a short story has much in common with a novel, it is written with much greater precision. You will often be asked to write a literary analysis. An analysis of a short story requires basic knowledge of literary elements of short story. The elements of fiction or the elements of the short story are used. These elements are used to analyze the story, author, setting, plot, themes, characters, styles, style, and the language that the author use. So these are the general elements that are used to analyze any written story. The first element is author. Author, this is the writer of any written work of art or fiction, like short story. It is very important to not only know the name of the author, but you should also understand and appreciate his or her background. This will help you as a reader to understand what, how, and why the author writes any story. For example, authors have different writing styles in their works, and they are motivated variously in their writing the story. Once you appreciate these things about the author, it's most likely that you shall understand and enjoy the story you are reading and analyzing. Yeah. The second element, okay, the second element that you need, when you are analyzing any written story is setting. Yes, setting means the place and the time. Setting, this is the place and time in which the story unfolds or takes place. Setting is important in understanding the background and impact of the story or incidents in the story. If a story is well told, we will recall the setting later, long after we have put the story aside, where the setting threatens the characters. It creates the conflict, the struggle, which is an important in fiction writing, okay, or literature, like a short story. So, in interpreting or reviewing a setting of a story, you may have to ask and answer such questions. How does the setting or atmosphere influence the work? Where do the events of the story take place? When do they occur? What was the mood when the incident took place? So, sitting puts the reader in the story by giving, sitting, puts the reader in the story by giving the reader the feeling of being in the situation. Sitting is a description of where and when the story takes place. In a short story, there are fewer sitting compared to a novel. The time is more limited. Uh, yeah, it's very important while you are interpreting and analyzing a short story to ask and answer these questions. What role does setting play in the story? Yes. Is it an important part of the plot or theme, or is it just a backdrop against which the action takes place? It's very necessary to ask you and to try to find the answer of how is the setting created. Consider geography, weather, time of the day, social conditions, etc. And okay, studying the time period, which is also part of the setting. Just try while you are interpreting and analyzing the short story to ask and answer these questions. When was the story written? When does it take place in the present, the past, or the future? How does the time period affect the language, atmosphere, or social circumstances of the story? Yes. Another element of analyzing, okay, another element of analyzing a short story is plot. Plot, this is a series or chain of related events that tells us what happens in a story. Yeah. So, so the plot is the main sequence of events that, the plot is the main sequence of events and that make up the story. In short stories, the plot is usually centered around one experience or significant moment. While you are interpreting and analyzing a short story, okay, it's very necessary to ask and answer questions like what is the most important event in the story? How is the plot structured? Is it linear, chronological, or does it move around? Is the plot believable? Yes. Okay, this diagram is about the chain of related events that take place in a story. Yeah, we have a plot at a glance. Yes, we have a plot in a glance. Exposition gives the background of the story. Rising action introduces complications, builds suspense. Yes, and builds suspense. Climax, okay, climax, the turning point of the story. Suspense reaches, its peak and following action and resolution of the story resolves. Okay, this means that results, we reach to the resolution. Okay, the conflict resolves the conflict. Yes, okay, elements, of plot conflict. Let us explore this idea of conflict. Okay, just let's to explore the idea of conflict further because it is a core and basic element of a plot in the story. The conflict, or a struggle that gives, any story its energy. This conflict can be between one person or animal and another. Conflict can be, yes, between one person or animal and a group of persons, or a whole society. One person or animal and nature, one person or animal with something in the person, with himself, inside him, feelings, emotions, thoughts, or animals such as fear, shines, homesickness, or just an inability to make a decision. Yeah. So conflict can, we have two types of conflict, external and internal conflict. A conflict can be external as when a person struggles with another person or with an energy, with an angry. Yes, these are the types or kinds of conflict. Okay, external and internal. Conflict or tension is usually the heart of the short story. And so, conflict is the heart of the short story, and it is related to the main character. In a short story, there is usually one main, there is one, main struggle. While you are interpreting and analyzing a short story, it's very necessary to ask and answer questions like, and how would you describe the main conflict? Is it an internal conflict within the character? Is it an external conflict caused by the surroundings or environment the main character finds himself or herself in? Yeah, more conflicts, okay, in a story result into complications that develop as you read the story that require resolutions. In most cases, these complications are full of suspense that builds up as you anticipate what happens next in the story. This leads, okay, to a climax in the story that is the most emotional moment or the tenses or yes of the tensest okay mood of the story. uh, every story with conflicts should come to a resolution or an end. Sometimes the story may end in suspense, leaving you to guess what happens at the end of the story. However, most stories, especially short stories, will often have a resolution or conclusive end. In other words, uh, your questions are answered at the end of the story, whether for good or bad. Therefore, yes, okay, in interpreting or reviewing a plot of the short story, you may have to ask and answer, okay, such questions as what is the central conflict of the story? Why does the conflict occur? What larger meaning or picture is suggested by the way the conflict is resolved? Okay, theme. Okay, another element of the short story. Okay, theme. This refers, okay, to the controlling main idea or central insight in the novel or short story. Theme answers the questions like what does it mean? A story's theme is often hard to state, but it is what the author means or what the reader perceives, okay, to mean by the whole story. A theme is usually stated in a sentence, okay, or a statement. This is so because a theme has to say something about the subject rather than just stated, okay, as a subjective phrase. So, okay. In other words, in a theme, the theme is the main idea, lesson, message, okay, in the short story. It is usually an abstract idea about a human condition, society, or life. So, okay, while you are interpreting, okay, the story, try to ask and answer these questions. How is the theme expressed? Are any elements repeated that may suggest okay, a theme? Is there more than one theme, okay, in the story? So mostly, okay, questions, okay, are framed in such a way as to let you show that you have learned one or so lessons from the story that peer on a human interest. These are usually challenging questions because they require you to have a good overview of the text and with regard to a wide spectrum of issues raised in the short story. Such questions may be asked and answered as what central idea or insight, okay, into life does the work convey? How do other elements help illustrate or reveal this idea or insight? Yes, characters of the short story. Characters, these are persons or animals involved in a story in order to show, entertain, and show us some truth about the human experience and ourselves. A good character should be alive to help us appreciate the story. Well, in a story, we can recognize a character, okay, by his yes, by his or it here its appearance, action, and thoughts reactions of others. However, the best story is one in which the narrator doesn't tell much directly about what the character is like. Instead, you learn about the character indirectly by how the character acts and how others act toward him, her, and by noticing what the character thinks and says. Yes, characterization. Characterization refers to the kind of characters, okay, the kinds, okay, the types of characters the novel or short story has depending on the level of their development and involvement in the story, okay, of the book. These types of characters, okay, the types of character may be main or secondary, protagonist or antagonist, round or flat, dynamic or static. So in most cases, questions come in such a way that you need to compare and contrast, describe, discuss pros and cons of one of more or more characters with regard to the development of the story or how appreciation of the characters generally. Yes, in other words, you can ask and answer such questions. Why do characters act and okay as they do? What are their motives? Do the characters change? How do they change? Yeah. So in characterization, okay, characterize to outline, okay, about that. Characterization deals with how the characters in the story are described. In short stories, there are usually fewer characters compared to a novel. They usually focus on one central character or protagonist. While you are interpreting and overviewing the short story, it's very necessary to ask and answer these questions. Who is the main character? Are the main character and other characters described through dialogue by the way they speak, dialect or slang? For instance, has the author described the characters by physical appearance, thoughts, and feelings, okay, and interaction, the way they act, okay, the way they act towards others. Are they static, flat characters who don't change? Are they dynamic, round characters? What type of characters are they? What qualities stand out? Are they stereotypes? Are the characters believable? Okay, yes, and okay, style of okay the short story. Yes, this refers to the way the short story is written in order to have a desired effect on the reader or audience. It also refers to the techniques used, okay, by the writer, okay, of a literary work, such as a point, yes, the point of view, humor, fantasy, flashcards, tune, and so on. The style of writing, if understood and appreciated well, can help the reader to analyze the story very well. So it's very important to focus on style while you are interpreting and analyzing the short story. Yes, and yes, point of view. This refers to the style the writer of a story uses to narrate the story. In other words, writers usually choose who should tell the story, who should okay, narrate the story, who should be the mouthpiece on the story. So you can tell the story from various angles by using points of view. There are three basic points of view often used in narratives: omniscient, third person limited, and first person. Yes, okay, el point of view means that who's telling this story in a way. The point from which the story is told determines how much we, the readers, okay, as a readers, okay, know about the characters. Yes, okay, in brief, the narrator is the person telling. What do you mean by narrator? The narrator is the person telling the story. Okay, by point of view, we mean, okay, from whose eyes the story is being told. Short stories tend to be told through one character's point of view. while you are analyzing, okay, and interpreting the short story, okay, it's very important to ask and answer like these questions. Who is the narrator or speaker in the story? Does the author speak through the main character? Is the story written in the first person, okay, I point of view? Is the story written in a detached third person, he, she point of view? Is there an all-knowing third person who can reveal what all the characters are thinking and doing at all times and in all places? Yes. Okay, the types of point of view. Here are three points of view. Yes, okay, omniscient point of view is the point of view of a good-like, all-knowing being who has created a fictional world and who can tell us everything that is going on in the minds of all the characters of the story. The omniscient narrator is outside the story. He or she is not part of the action at all. Yes, he is outside, okay, of the story, not as a part, okay, not as a character in the story. The third person, yes, the third person, okay, point of view is okay, where another writer has decided to tell the story from the limited point of view of a single person participant in the story. This kind of story reads as if a camera is okay zooming in on just one character. The writer uses the third person singular he or she or the actual name of the character. This is very close to the omniscient point of view in that the writer still takes a prominent role. Yes. So the third person, okay, omniscient narrator doesn't, okay, in the third person omniscient, a narrator, okay, doesn't participate in an action in the action of the story. Narrator doesn't refer to himself or herself. Narrator knows the thoughts, okay, and feelings of all characters. Readers get insight into several characters. But okay, and in the first person limited point of view, the narrator speaks as I, as a character in the story. This character can tell us only what he or she sees and hears and thinks about what is going on. In other words, the narrator is a participant in the story. The writer chooses to tell the story in the name of another fictitious, okay, person and uses the first person pronoun I as witness and participant in the events that unfold in the story. In this case, the point of view is also limited in that narrator can only tell what he or she sees or experiences rather than what others do. Okay, in brief, the first person narrator, okay, is a character in the short story. Narrator uses first person pronouns I, me, my, we, us, our to refer to himself or herself. Narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of one character and speaks directly to readers. Yes, style of the story. In order to review the points of view of any story, you may need to ask and answer such questions as what is the point, yes, of view and used in the story? Is it consistently used? How does it affect your understanding of the work? Why did the author choose that point of view? Okay, about style. Okay. And the last one is about language. Okay, the last element of a short story, language. Language is a part of style, but it stands out to be the most important element of any fiction writing. Literal language is often used in fiction writing to relish, okay, the story so that it is more clear, deductive, educative, informative, and indeed interesting or entertaining. Some of these language devices include figures of speech and symbolism. Yes, symbolism such as image, symbols, irony, metaphors, similes, okay, and so on. Symbolism. What is the definition of a symbol? A symbol is a person, a place, an activity, or an object that stands for something beyond itself. Yes. Yes, and yeah, the question that may help you interpret, okay, or review a work of literature as a short story include what figures of speech have been used, what symbols or images does the work, okay, does the short story include, what do they mean, what do they suggest about the meaning of the work as a whole. So you shall learn more about literary, inshallah, language later, okay, in other literature courses. And during this course about, and okay, we will discuss, we will analyzing, okay, a lot of short stories. Okay. Um, yes. And just okay in brief and to outline about the style and language. Language is okay, as we discussed, okay, language is a part of style. Okay, look at the writer's sentence and structure and vocabulary. Okay, just by asking and answering these questions, does he or she use long sentence or short concise sentences? What about figurative language? So the author's style has to do with the author's vocabulary, use of imagery, tone, or feeling of the story. It has to do with his attitude, okay, towards the subject. In some short stories, the tone can be ironic, humorous, cold, or dramatic. Okay, while you are interpreting and reviewing, okay, the short story, okay, try to ask and answer like these questions, okay, that related to the style of the author. Is his language full of figurative language? What images does he use? Okay, inshallah, okay, in this course, I teach you the literal analysis of a short story. Okay, during that, you will often be in the form of an essay where you may be asked to give your opinions of the short story at the end. Thank you.